Shabbat Shalom. So I want to say Shabbat Shalom to everyone who is here on site. Shabbat Shalom to those who are here online, because there are some of those as well. They taught me in rabbinical school that Friday night, even before rabbinical school, probably in like first grade Hebrew school, that as Shabbat comes in on Friday nights, we disconnect from electricity, from our electronic devices, from the internet, from feeling pressured to be responding to things in real time. And here, as we build community in multiple places at multiple places at the same time, we find ourselves embracing technology with new kavanah. Kavanah is the word for intention. And I feel like on this evening that we're rededicating the Staircase Art Gallery in the name and the memory and the legacy of Mike Oswald, that Mike is someone, and I don't know the full history of the art gallery, but it takes a person of vision and a person with a particular kind of sight to turn a staircase into an art gallery. And as we sit here, a community divided between folks at home, folks on site, folks perhaps on vacation down the shore, or people who have joined Or Hadash from far away. We have like an Or Hadash South contingent in North Carolina and Georgia who have found us through YouTube, that it's really fitting that this is, I think, our second in-person Friday night service, sort of outdoors hybrid during this transition time. Looking at these things, this technology and embracing this technology on Shabbat in a way that requires that same kind of vision and that same kind of creativity that it takes to turn a staircase into an art gallery. Not just a space that one walks through in order to go from A to B, but a place where someone stops and lingers and enjoys the beauty in a moment. To transform a space like that gives me hope for how we each can learn to transform those things in our lives, those moments in our lives through which we rush, that keep us at their beck and call, and call us to stop, to linger, and enjoy the magnificent. And so we light our Shabbat candles as we bring in these 25 hours of rest, of recharge. So we're going to turn in our Siddur to page 3. And can I call on Lainey Moss and Shelley Rosenberg, who worked so hard with Lisa and with this whole family to make this evening happen and this project come together, to join Lisa as we light our Shabbat candles. So do you want to come on up too? Oh, you know, the side closest to the candles. There you go, have a microphone. Where's Shelley?
Right?
She's got
I'm here. Are we singing or saying? We can just say.
I can't vouch for how well this works outside.
Not on your tissue there. Trying. Oh. Not.
Not quite, not quite.
Hurry. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Sort of stayed lit.
Hey, they're going for now. Thanks. Page 7. Yada nai 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 yada nai 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 yada nai 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 yada nai 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 yada nai 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 yada nai 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 yada nai 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 yada nai 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 yada nai yada nai 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 yada nai 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 yada nai 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 yada nai nai yada nai 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 yada nai 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 nai. Yedid nefesh avarachaman mishoch avdecha el retzonecha yarutz avdecha kemo hayal yishtachaveh el muhadarecha Teravlo yedidutecha mino fetuf vechol tamay nai nai yada nai 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 yada nai yada nai nai yada nai nai yada nai nai yada nai nai The last verse. Higalena ufros chavivi alai et sukat shalomecha ta'ir eretz michvodecha Nagila venismechavach Ma'er ahuf kiva moed v'choneinu ki me'olam yadaranai yadaranai Page 25. Shiru l'Adonai, Shir Hadash, Shiru l'Adonai, Kol haaretz, Shiru l'Adonai, Baruch Hu Shemo, Baseru miyom leyom Yeshu Ato, Shiru l'Adonai, Shir Hadash, Shiru l'Adonai, Kol haaretz, Shiru l'Adonai, Baruch Hu Shemo, Baseru miyom leyom Yeshu Ato, Baseru miyom leyom Yeshua Ato. On page 37, we reach Psalm 29. Psalm 29, Havu Ladonai, is a blessing, is a psalm that gets recited 3 times over the course of Shabbat. And it gets connected to Shabbat because of the way because of the number of times, perhaps, that God's name is mentioned. It is not Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. It is not a Shabbat psalm, right? It is not the psalm for Shabbat, but it gets linked to this time of Shabbat, both in the Torah service and here in Kabbalat Shabbat, because God's name is evoked 7 times, or in 7 different ways, in this psalm, linking it to this 7th day, the 7th day, the day of rest. And I wanted to mention this because there's a way, perhaps, that as we gather tonight to rededicate our art gallery, that this idea of finding the essence of a person or the essence of something in place sometimes lurks in plain sight. Sometimes hides right in front of us. A psalm that we recite every Friday night, or as we put the Torah away, or something like that, being connected to this day of Shabbat, is in some way like the ways in which those whom we've loved and lost revisit us in strange ways. When we notice something about them in our house, in our routine, when we think of a moment when we just would have called them or texted them or something, that in plain sight, in our daily life, as we walk through our rhythms and our routines, they pop up. And so as we note these different times that we mention God's name and we connect to this 7th day, this holy day, I want us to notice all of these different times and moments when we would have thought to mention something to Mike. I was joking with Lisa earlier as I was taping down, and then as Sylvan was taping down the cable here, that as I was laying all of the cables and there was this like crow's nest of cables here, that Mike would have turned to me and said, "Isn't someone going to tape that down? Someone could fall." In fact, this extension cord that's snaking from there used to be bright orange, and I went to the store when it was clear that we were going to be doing hybrid services and bought a black one because I didn't want a bright orange extension cord messing up the aesthetics of the service. We have been left with this hole in the aesthetics of this place. And I feel like throughout this year, even though Mike and I didn't get a huge amount of time to work together and collaborate in this role, that I feel like in so many ways I'm carrying that piece of his voice with me as we cobble our way through this year in all of these kind of weird looking, ugly ways with cables and furniture and weird configurations and mismatched chairs outdoors. I hear his voice and I feel his presence in this space. And so I want to invite us in tonight to noticing where and how you're hearing that voice in whatever way you knew him and loved him best. So we rise in spirit or in body for Psalm 29. Mizmor leDavid, Havul Adonai b'nei Elim, Havul Adonai, Kavod v'hozai, Havul Adonai kevod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai b'hadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, El hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koachai, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vayshaver Adonai et arzei halvanon, Vayarkidehem k'mo egel Levanon v'Sirion, kemo vein re'emim, Kol Adonai chotzev lahavotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yachol el hayalot, Vayechasof Yerot, Uvechalo Kulo Omer Kavodai, Adonai Lama Buyashav Yeshev Adonai Melech Leolam, Adonai Oz Leham Oyitin, Adonai Yevarech et Amo Vashalom. Yai, hai, 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 hai. Yai, hai, hai, hai. Yai, hai, 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 hai. Yai, hai, 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 hai. Yai, hai, 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 na, 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 hai. Yai, hai, 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 na, 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 hai. Ya, na, 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 hai, na, 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 hai. Yai, hai, 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 hai. We can be seated as we turn to Lecha Dodi, our song for greeting the Shabbat bride, welcoming in the Shabbat bride. I want to invite people to turn to the person next to them and wish a Shabbat Shalom. If it's someone whose name you don't know, although in this group I imagine people know each other pretty well, I want to invite people on the chat to share your name and where you are joining in from today so that we can all come together in one community. I want to give an extra Shabbat Shalom to Sharon Starr and Rich Davis and Jules and Ruth and Taco and Amy and Robert Goldberg-Alberts and everyone else who is here on YouTube Live to please take a second, introduce yourself, share where you're from as we all come together as one big community across space here in this space. Because it's through that Kabbalat Panim, that looking around the room and seeing who else is here with us, that we can truly do this mitzvah of Kabbalat Shabbat, of welcoming Shabbat. When we welcome each other's faces, we can welcome that divine face. And so Shabbat Shalom. And as others come in, I'll make sure to wish a Shabbat Shalom to all of you so that we can all see who is in this room here with us. Page 41. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor bedibur echad. Hishmihanu el hameyochad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'shem u'tiferet v'litchila la 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 lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela. Woo! Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor haberacha merosh mikadem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila la 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 lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekavela. Woo! Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat. Top of page 45. Hitoreri kiva orech kumi uri shir daberi. Kevod Adonai Elohayich nigla la 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 lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela. Woo! Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat. Page 47. Yamin usmol tifrotzi v'et Adonai ta'aritzi al yadish ben partzi. V'nismecha v'nagila la 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 lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela. We rise in spirit or in body as we face the entrance to this sacred space, the entrance to our homes and our dens and our dining rooms as we greet the Shabbat bride. Bohi v'shalom ateret bala, gam besimcha uvetzochola, toch emunei hamsegula. Bohi chala la 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 lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela. Woo! Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela la 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 lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela. We remain standing in spirit or in body as we turn to page 57 for Baruch Hu. As we bless the source of life. Actually, we should face this way. So we are, and we pivot that way. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed, and the blessing gives us strength and makes our vision clear, and the blessing gives us peace and the courage to dare as we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. We can be seated. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Yotzer Or בורא חושך. אשר בדברו מעריב ערבים בחוכמה פותח שערים ובתבונה משנה עתים. ומעביר יום ומהביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב ערבים. Let's read together on page 61 the interpretive version of Ahavat Olam by Rami Shapiro. Together. We are loved by an unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved by an unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved by an unending love. Embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled. Ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love. Blessed are you, beloved one, who loves you. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Page 65, the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele sher anochi metzavecha hayom alevavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta baham beshivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'aderech uveshochbecha uvekumecha ukashartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchetavtam al mezuzot beitecha Uvi sha'arecha v'haya im shamoa tishmu shonachim etzavcha. Continue silently with one of the two biblical selections that follows. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Below the line on page 71, there's reading about the rendering of the Shema in the Torah scroll. It says in the handwritten scroll of the Torah, the word Shema of Shema Yisrael ends with an oversized ayin, and the word Echad ends with an oversized dalid. Taken together, these two letters spell aid, meaning witness. Whenever we recite the Shema, we bear witness to our awareness of God's presence. And so as we prepare to turn to Mi Chamocha on page 77 and 79, I want to note that perhaps it's not just awareness to God's presence that we are called to be witness to every time we say the Shema. Before we recite Mi Chamocha, our song that we sang triumphantly at the sea after having crossed over from slavery to freedom, the end of enslavement in Egypt, in our people's mythic history, we recite the Shema, this prayer, this creed, right? Shema Yisrael, listen up, O people Israel. Adonai is our God, Adonai is one, with this sort of secret hint of aid, of bearing witness, of paying attention, that perhaps it's only by closing our eyes and opening our ears, not just to holiness that's all around us, but to all of those in the world who are not feeling echad, who are not feeling one, who are not feeling at peace, who are being oppressed, who are feeling separated from community, whether in community that we are directly in contact with or in community because we are all part of the human race. This weekend and this week we mark Juneteenth, the day that marks emancipation in this country's history for African Americans who were enslaved. A holiday that it took until this year to acknowledge finally as a national holiday, even though the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by the President of the United States nationally. It took until 2021 for this day, this holiday, Juneteenth, to be signed and proclaimed into our calendar. Aid. We are Adim. We must bear witness, especially those of us who are not African American, who are not folks of color. Perhaps those of us who have in our own history, whether it's our Jewish history, whether it's our intersecting identity here, history, some history of oppression that helps us to attune to that call to be Adim, to be witnesses, not to appropriate a day or a tradition into our own because we think it's nice, but to be witness to the story of those with whom we travel, of those with whom we build our communities, our schools, our country, our communities, our families, our Jewish communities. And so I want to offer as a kavanah, as an intention for saying Mi Chamocha tonight, that perhaps we can't in any service say these words of Mi Chamocha and remember our moment of liberation without first stopping, closing our eyes and opening our ears as we say the Shema, to bear witness to all that is around us. And only then can that song of our own liberation become a song that connects to the song of liberation across the entirety of humanity. And so with that, as our kavanah, as our intention, and holding that this week we mark Juneteenth for the first time nationally as Americans, we turn to ancient and quite contemporary still words of liberation, Mi Chamocha. Page 77 at the bottom and 79. Umalchuto beratzon kiblu alehem Moshe uMiriam uvnei Yisrael lechanu shira b'simcha rabah ve'ameru chulam mi chamocha mi chamocha mi chamocha mi chamocha mi chamocha mi chamocha b'helim Adonai, mi kamocha, mi kamocha, mi kamocha, mi kamocha, mi kamocha, mi kamocha, nedar bakodesh nora tehilot oseh fele nora tehilot oseh Fele malchutecha rauva לפני משה זה אלי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פד אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל page 81 השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ועמידנו מלכנו לחיים ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך spread over us the shelter of your peace סוכת שלומך ושמור צאתנו ואוהנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ברוך אתה אדוני הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ועל ירושלים. We rise in spirit or in body for Veshamru. Veshamru bnei Yisrael et Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם וברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם וברית עולם ביני ובני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם וברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם וברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם וברית עולם יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודש הבריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא ויאמרו amen. We turn together to page 91 for the Amidah silent on Friday evenings. And I want to invite you into the Amidah in the way that you want to be in this space. As we continue silently with the words in Hebrew or English in our Siddur, perhaps the commentary or some of the readings on the page surrounding the prayers or the poetry in the back of the book or with the prayers in our hearts. However we feel most called into this time of silent prayer as the sun begins to set on this Friday evening of bird song and nice breezes and thankfully cooling temperatures, we enter in to the space each of us needs to enter. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Open my lips, beloved one, and let my mouth declare your praise. Use shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imeru. Amen. So it's become our tradition at Or Hadash during the COVID-19 pandemic. Because, every time something happens and something changes, new traditions just spontaneously crop up all along, around the edges, and we don't even notice that it's a tradition until it's already happening. Perhaps we know from, say, the BBYO world that you do it once, it's a program. You do it twice, it's tradition. So we've done this now more than twice, that as we raise our glasses for Kiddush, we invite people to call out, to shout out things that they are celebrating in their lives. Birthdays, graduations, new publications, new art galleries, I don't know. But things that you are celebrating in your lives. Like, for instance, I'll start. We welcomed a baby into our family this week. It doesn't have to be quite that tumultuous. Hopefully yours came with more sleep. So for folks who are on site, for folks who are online, you can type it into the chat. I want to invite people to to shout out anything that you're share anything that you are celebrating this week, so that we can raise our glass in l'chaim to you as well. So who's celebrating something this week? Yeah, Lainey. Lainey's birthday yesterday. You share a birthday with my dad. Different year, I think, very much. Oh, and Rob Klotz? Oh, very cool. There's a big June 17th crew. I'm July 17th. Who else? Anyone else celebrating something this week? Father's Day. Awesome. Other folks who are celebrating something this week. Nice. Woo-hoo. Especially end of this school year. Online, in-person, hybrid, small groups, raising it up for all of the teachers. And so I want to invite us to rise in spirit or in body for Kiddush on page 119. And if there are others that are coming in with a little delay on the chat, we will shout you guys out in just a second as soon as we finish Kiddush. Don't think we've forgotten you. Savri Chavirai. Let's try that again. We're not used to having to respond when we're on the computer. Savri Chavirai. There we go. Now we're back in person. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim ki elenu karata ve'otanu kidashta la'avodatecha ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat l'chaim. L'chaim. L'chaim as well. Jules and Ruth are celebrating a first step by their youngest. Oh, their youngest granddaughter took her first step, and her daughter-in-law, and two grandkids moved to Philadelphia. I'm celebrating that as well because that means that Hannah and Gretchen are moving into my neighborhood. And yes, and if anyone else has something to shout out, we shout out a l'chaim to you as we raise our glass. We can be seated. One of the beautiful things about being in community is that we get to mark moments of joy together, and we also get to share in times that are hard. We transition from our Kiddush, where we fill our glass and raise our glass filled to the brim with sweetness, to our Misha Berach L'Cholim, our prayer for healing and wholeness, because that too is part of being in community. Circling our wagons, holding one another close when there's a time to support one another in a time of illness or anything else, because it's not just when we're physically ill that we are not whole. I want to raise up also that so many have over the last 17 months been struggling with complex mental health issues and issues of both old trauma becoming reactivated and new trauma being recognized for the first time as we begin to come out. So I also want to hold those who are feeling less than whole and perhaps not sure how to best be seen in community, and to say we see you and we are all here with you as we navigate these waters together. So I'm going to read the list of names of folks who I have on our congregational Misha Berach list. I want to invite people to share on the chat, folks who you're thinking of for healing and wholeness, folks who are on site to shout out during the space that I'll make between the two verses of our Misha Berach prayer and song, all of those who you're thinking of tonight for healing. so that we can turn our hearts towards all of them and hold them with you. And if that name is your own name, that is welcome as well. Misheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. And this evening we're thinking of and sending our hopes and our energy for healing and wholeness to Andrea Abrams-Herbert, James Alberts, Roberta Archibald, Arden Bell, Barry Bell, Carol Mueller-Bell, Rabbi Deborah Bowen, Bill Conrad, Robin Cupo, Rich Davis, Frankie Deaver, Faye Fishman, Marcy Fish, Brian and Joan Flaherty, Marcia Friend, Eric Gershman, Jonathan Giannini, George and Gail Glansberg, Hal Goodman, Barbara Granger, Ed Grimes, Alberta Hall, Cordula Hamish, Chava Hurley, Michelle Kalish, Sharon Cass, Beverly and Howard Kaufman, Fran Kaufman, Richard Krasen, Elsie Lieberstein, Jonathan Loeb, Len McEwen, Robert Mueller, Anthony Nero, Lisa Nicholson, Riley and Thomas Pablo, Abby Rosenberg, Mike Rosenberg, Shelley Sanders, Willie Schneer, Bertha Schwartz, Margaret Steiber, Lloyd Suter, Lynn Van Engel, Isabel Vita, Brandy Brandy Waslewski, Stan Weckstein, Millie Weissman, Karen Wells, Grace Zangwill, Eileen Zeff, and Elizabeth Kennedy. Marty Applebaum, Doug Proudman, Rob Johnson, June Powell, and Eric Griffin Shelley. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us Amen. We rise in spirit or in body for Aleinu. As we turn from that blessing of healing and wholeness to Aleinu, which speaks of a vision for wholeness, oneness, and unity for our whole world. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, la'tet gedula leotzer breshit, shenatan lanu Torah emet, v'chaye olam nata betochenu, v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shehu notei shamayim ve'oseh haaretz. Shlina. And then all that has divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power, and then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind, and then all of humanity will be gentle, and then all of humanity will be strong, and then no person will be subject to another's will, and then all will be rich and free and varied, and then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many, and then all will share equally in the earth's abundance, and then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old, and then all will nourish the young, and then all will cherish life's creatures, and then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth. And then all will be so very rich and free, and everywhere will be called Eden once again. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad Ushemo echad. We can be seated. So we turn to page 131 for Mourner's Kaddish, and we turn in our hearts and in our memories to those who we've loved and lost at this season in years past. This week we remember the Yortzites, the anniversaries of the passing of Michael Myron Kaufman, father of Steph Zangwill, Kay Schoenbach Axelrod, sister of Penny Aronson, Nathan Klotz, father of Rob Klotz, Littman Rosenberg, father of Manny Rosenberg, Simon Schneer, father of Shelley Quigley, Michael Leon Brand, brother of Miriam Ornstein, Ira Jaffe, father of Eileen Jaffe, Judy Stern, mother of Larry Stern, Frederick Charles Cohen, father of Stessa Cohen, Max Ornstein, father of Harry Ornstein, Norman Alper, father of Jeff Alper, Sylvia Blackman, mother of Paula Pavel, Claire Roman, grandmother of Jeff Roman, Mark Crespi, brother of Jackie Steinberg and Scott Crespi, Leon Levinson, father of Penny Aronson, Rita M. Rose, mother of Barbara Weissman, Jean Rabinowitz, Esterkin Stern, grandmother of Larry Stern, Philip Benson Lindy, father of Alan and Frank Lindy, and Martin Schaefer, father of Deb Schaefer. And are there others who are remembering someone whose Yortzeit is this week? And of course, we're gathered here tonight also in special memory, though his Yortzeit is passed by about, a couple weeks. Just 1 week. Mike Oswald. And Rich is saying Kaddish for Sidney Meyer, his father-in-law. So I want to invite mourners, those observing a Yortzeit, to rise in spirit or in body on page 131 for Mourner's Kaddish, along with all those whose tradition it is to rise for Kaddish, or those who are saying Kaddish tonight in memory of Mike. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemeh rabah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach leolam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemeh tekudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be a blessing for all of us. We can be seated. And so, there's a gallery opening tonight. So at this time, usually we would call up Mike and the artist who Mike had arranged to be showing in the Staircase Art Gallery for a quick talk, an introduction to their show. we have a very, very special show that we're dedicating this evening, and that will be hung throughout the entire summer. Yeah. And so, if you are not physically here right now, please do. You have a fob. Come on down, check out this wonderful show in the Staircase Art Gallery that we're opening tonight, and to say a couple of words in his father's memory and about his father's show that we are hanging in his honor as we dedicate the art gallery in his name. Sylvan, can you say a couple words about your dad and this show?
I don't have anything for.
You're going to need a microphone, otherwise people on Zoom aren't going to be able to hear you. Or, I mean, YouTube Live.
Oh God.
Close.
Okay.
Close.
Okay. Can I move that?
On the interwebs.
Okay. Hi. I'll just start by saying, you know those lists? There's like all these different lists of basic human needs, right? There's the hierarchy of needs. There's these different. We have on our fridge like a wheel of feelings, and a wheel of basic human needs. Just yeah, it is. It is just because sometimes it's useful to remember what those things are and that you're normal. But I had a revelation when I was looking at it because I didn't realize that there were basic needs in a category that whoever this internet person that made this chart said there was spiritual needs, and that's a sort of basic human thing. And underneath that, there's like all these different subcategories were needs for beauty and order. And that really struck me, and it made a lot of sense. A lot of things made a lot of sense all of a sudden, in terms of my father's relationship to Judaism, my own relationship to Judaism, my father's approach to life. He wasn't a religious person, but he was invested in community and family, and very invested in beauty and order. And I believe that was his spiritual alignment. And I brought that to Lisa, and she was like, oh, yes. You said, I believe that art was his avocation, which means what? I forget. It's something about loving it. You do it because you love it. Yeah, thank you. Very good. He didn't do it to make money. So, and I just think that is such a cool thing. It explains why I'm really obsessive about where things go in my house. But it also, and it makes, and Dad was the same way. I guess I'm the same way as him. But it's, that this thing about beauty and order, and that he can't handle the orange extension cord. That I understand, and I'm really glad you got the black one, Alanna. The orange would have just been gauche. Yeah. But we can accept it because of internet. So I think what you'll see today. So what we did, in my father's last year of his life, he started a project that he knew would be his last project, and it's called Birch Tree Portraits, and it's a series of watercolor illustrations, portraits of sort of composite characters, figures, based on the people he worked with throughout his life. He was very called to work with people with developmental disabilities. His main occupation was social work, and he was a behavioral specialist. And that was just really a huge part of his life from when he was really young. And his investment in the people that he worked with, you'll see it's unmistakable. There's a set of really amazing portraits he took in photographs, and then a sort of somewhat of, I don't know whether, he wasn't really translating those photos. It was more from memory, these illustrations, and you'll see them, each one of them. But you'll notice that they're not normal portraits, because they all are like brightly colored and have the people's name on them in like fun letters. And that's because the kind of artist my dad was, there's fine art in that room, and then there's also what I would call like illustration, but like art for community. And that the purpose of the work was to either remember or be connected to or serve community. There was a lot of things. So there's an essay that I haven't finished writing yet that's going to contextualize the entire exhibit. But in the meantime, you'll have to make do with what I did write, which or did edit, which is his artist statement about the birch tree portraits. You'll see that we have photocopies when you walk in the door, and you'll also see on the reverse of that packet a list of works that'll be probably your best friend as you go through it. Inside the pages, there are portraits in words. So part of the project was not just the visual portraits, but also the sort of like little monologues that he created for each individual, also based on memory. And I also edited those as well. But it's surround all that one project, which has 6 images in it, and it's to your right as soon as you enter. There are a selection of works from throughout his life and career as an artist, including an amazing find from 1962 that he was 12 years old, and it was like some comic book that he was going to be the star of, and it looks like the cover of this comic book for Mike, and right next to that, a sketch of a character expressing anger, right? Because there's a thing of feelings on my fridge, but we grew up in a house where, what were some of those games? There were so many like feelings games. Yeah, a lot of that. And so you'll see that, yeah. You'll see on the second thing that's like from long ago is a picture of someone that represents anger. And of course the image looks exactly like his father. Who's somebody who would have thrown away his comic books and, got in the way of him making art, and it wasn't necessarily a validating environment. So a lot of what he did was informed by that, like, just youthful love of art, comics and cartoons, and, learned to draw ads in the back of a magazine for kids. And that was something that he carried with him for his whole life. He even went on a TV show once or something. But the essay that I intend to write is like also a laundry list of all the different ways that he wove art into his life. He, at various points working for a daycare center, made a playground. He would murals all throughout our house. It looked like a tree growing out of the house. I'm sure you all know them. Programs that he designed and did an illustration of. There's an illustration of the synagogue in there that you'll see that he did. God, there's so many things. But it was not just like, oh, I have this fine art career. It was also like, everything I do is artistic. I can't do anything, right? For him, like, can't do anything without ornament or just like designing it in some way. There was just a lot of intention. And all of his books, of course. That was like the huge main sort of organizing principle of his work, was to write books for children to help children and parents talk about feelings. And that was also his life's work. So both like in art and professionally. And in life. That's true. Yeah. So that's what you'll see, is this birch tree portrait surrounded by this other, kind of snapshots from different phases of life. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Sylvan. Was that supposed to be 3 sentences? Oh, okay. It wasn't a long time. It was very nice. So I just want a couple of notes before we end our service together. First of all, if you are not here in person, please do find a time to stop by the synagogue, especially if you're an Or Hadash member and you have a fob. Come on in and see the display. Lainey is raising her hand. Wait, Lainey, do you want to come up and say this into the microphone so that everyone can hear? Okay, so I'll be Lainey's microphone. You just keep talking and I'll keep talking. So we are going to have an opening for the wider community in the fall. Date to be determined. TBD. But you can come in and take a sneak peek of the exhibit, which again will be hanging all summer long and then obviously into the fall. Is it possible to have a few more copies of that pamphlet program to be there for people to be using throughout the summer? Great, perfect. For those who are here on site, a couple of announcements and words about this evening. Well, actually, for everybody, first of all, a big thank you to Shelley and to Lainey for spearheading the fundraising effort that went into upgrading the space of this art gallery. Throughout the spring, their efforts sort of got put into effect as we've upgraded the lighting with some really beautiful and dimmable lighting in that space to enhance the beauty of everything that we show in our stairwell art gallery. And as well, we will be, and I think in time for the community opening in the fall, there will be an iPad on a stand that will feature slides of each piece that is hung in the gallery for each show, along with any notes and artist statements and things like that, to promote accessibility. Because one of the things that is sort of the underside of the incredible creativity and vision of turning a staircase into an art gallery is that for folks in wheelchairs or with mobility issues, turning a staircase into an art gallery. And so for people to be able to enjoy the art face to face, and also a little bit further away, but having an enhanced experience, perhaps even with some additional statements from the artist possible with that, with those slides that'll be accessible from the iPad, so that all can enjoy in all different kinds of ways. And we thank you so much. We want to thank the Inclusion Committee for being active in partnering with Shelley and Lainey in that part of the project as well. For those who are here on site, you may notice that I have a box of masks right there. We are a group of more than 20, so even if it is our general consensus to be unmasked in the building, it is our policy for communal events, be masked in indoor spaces. Obviously, if you are eating, just take a step or two away from other folks and, take off your mask and eat. But if you don't have a mask, please do avail yourself of one of the lovely fashionable blue masks, the disposable hospital sort. And I want to thank Lainey for putting together. Is it Lainey or Lainey and Shelley, or are there others who raise your hand if you were part of putting together tonight's oneg? The Mosses for putting together tonight's. Oh, and Lisa for putting together tonight's oneg, and Shelley. Oh, Shelley with the. Okay, now we're getting into the weeds. Shelley for the grapes. Thank you. We're a Reconstructionist congregation, everybody. And to really enjoy tonight, and especially for those who are in this space for the first time in 17 months, or for the first time in even longer, or perhaps for the first time in just about 12 months since Mike's funeral. Yes, it was. It was right. No. Yeah, Mike's funeral was the only in-person event that we had in the building from. I think during the pandemic, the only large event that we had in here, other than a bar bat mitzvah, but even that was larger. So also very, sort of a very special. Yeah, it was 26, 25, something like that. But so to also sort of notice as we step in the renewal. And so as we walk in together, before we enter into the space, we'll regather for a shehechianu, a blessing that we say when we do something for the first time, and also for the first time in a long time. So whether this is a moment of newness or a moment of renewal, we'll mark it together as we renew this space and rededicate it in Mike's honor and Mike's name. And so, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.